Now, this is not a nice picture. This is, I hate to say it, a typical day in the emergency room of Al-Aqsa Hospital. That's me there. It's an American doctor who was there. And I'm going to talk about Ala and Aya, who are brother and sister who came in. The little boy we're treating on the bed there is six years old. We had dozens upon dozens of people coming in at once with appalling injuries from a bomb that had gone off in a local camp. I mentioned earlier that there is no triage process at all out there. The numbers are so overwhelming that you can't triage, you can't prioritise. And there were just injured bodies lying all over the waiting area of the emergency room. And I happened to see this little 6-year-old boy lying on the ground. No one had seen him. He'd been abandoned. His parents had been killed. He was lying there. No one had seen him. And the first thing I noticed was that he had an open chest wound. And you could see air being sucked in and out. Now, to those that aren't medical, that can be rapidly fatal and needs urgent treatment. He had appalling burns covering his whole body. We bundled him up and took him into the only bed that was in the resuscitation area. That little boy, we think was about 9, had been on that bed. We had to put him on the floor. He had a terrible, devastating brain injury, exposed brain, inevitably fatal, but he was taking a while to die. And it took him several hours to die, but there was nowhere for him to go to die, so he was lying on the floor, slowly dying. Here is Aya. She actually turned out to be the sister of this little boy here. She was about 8 or 9. She didn't have life-threatening injuries. She just had a badly fractured leg, an open fracture of the leg, which was very displaced. And a very displaced bone in the leg needs to be straightened in order to make sure there's enough blood supply going down to the rest of the leg. So this day we had no morphine in the hospital. We'd run out of morphine. So we had no pain relief to give them. The orthopaedic surgeon came down, had to straighten her leg with no pain relief at all. And I can still hear the screams in my head. I've written down there in 3 hours later, because what happened then, I haven't got a photograph of that, because it was so awful. But about 3 hours later, an 8-year-old girl came in. I don't know her name, we never knew her name. Again orphaned, all her family been killed. She'd been burnt from top to toe. The burns on her face were so awful, were so severe, that you could see her facial bones through the burnt flesh. Now, she was going to die. There was no way she could survive in any hospital. Ireland, UK, England. She was going to die. She had unsurvivable injuries. But we couldn't palliate her. We couldn't treat her pain. So she died in agony over about 4 hours. No morphine to give her. What made it worse was that there was nowhere she could die in private. So she ended up lying on the floor of the emergency room, dying in agony, and we could do nothing about it. And this was a typical day. We saw many days like that.